Imagine waking up, glancing in the mirror, and finally seeing a leaner, tighter midsection reflecting back at you. No more sucking in your gut, no more hiding behind baggy shirts, just visible progress and proof that your diet and your workouts are finally paying off. That kind of transformation isn't the result of cutting out entire food groups, starving yourself, or jumping from one trendy diet to another. The truth is, if you want to lose belly fat fast and keep it off for good, you only need to consistently eat 5 types of foods. That's it. 5. And if you can understand why these foods work so well, how they keep you full, and how they regulate your hormones, metabolism, and energy, you'll never fall for the marketing hype around some miracle supplement or secret diet plan again. Let's start with the foundation: vegetables. Yeah, I get it. You've heard it before, eat your veggies. But the fact of the matter is that vegetables are one of the most overlooked fat loss weapons on the planet. People don't like veggies because they don't get that instant dopamine hit they get from a slice of pizza or a spoonful of ice cream. But here's the thing, vegetables are high volume, low calorie foods that fill up your stomach and signal to your brain that you're full. That fullness shuts down cravings, not by willpower, but by chemistry. Fiber plays a major role here. It slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and keeps you satisfied longer. That's why eating a bowl of roasted Brussels sprouts and cauliflower leaves you feeling more satisfied and full than a tiny bag of potato chips. There's also the thermic effect of food, which explains why your body burns a good amount of calories just digesting veggies. They almost require more energy to process than their calorie content gives you back. So even though there's no such thing as a negative calorie food, you're still coming as close as possible to burning fat by consuming something with veggies. There's also ways to make them taste amazing, especially if you eat them when you're actually hungry from being in a calorie deficit, and then you add some seasoning, they'll taste significantly better. Numerous studies back up the fact that vegetables are the key to slimming your midsection. For example, a meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition concluded that increased vegetable intake is consistently associated with reductions in abdominal body fat. Another study from the Nutrients Journal shows that people who consume higher amounts of vegetables tend to have better weight outcomes over the long term, meaning that not only will vegetables help you burn fat, but they'll also help keep that weight off. And you want to have them in each meal because the real magic of vegetables is that they take up space, physical space. Imagine your stomach is like a balloon. The more volume you put in it, the faster the stretch receptors in your stomach send a signal to your brain that says, we're good here, we're full. So what takes up more space? 300 calories worth of broccoli or 300 calories worth of ice cream? The broccoli will literally overflow your plate, while the ice cream might not even cover the bottom of your bowl. And this difference in volume is why veggies crush cravings. When you're trying to lose belly fat, managing hunger isn't optional, it's critical. You won't stick to anything long term if you're consistently feeling deprived. So that brings us right to our next foundational food group for reducing belly fat: protein. Protein is the most important macronutrient when it comes to fat loss, muscle maintenance, and metabolic support. Why? Because every time you lose weight, you risk losing muscle. And muscle is your body's metabolic engine. It burns more calories at rest. So if you lose muscle while losing weight, your metabolism slows down and your body becomes more efficient at storing fat. Definitely not ideal. What protein does is it protects that muscle tissue. When you eat enough of it, your body hangs on to muscle and burns fat instead. Plus, protein also has a high thermic effect. Just like veggies, around 20 to 30% of the calories from protein are burned away during digestion. That's not the case with carbs or fat. So a high protein meal doesn't just fill you up, it actively accelerates fat burning. And the research strongly supports this. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in Advances in Nutrition found that high protein diets not only enhance satiety, but also preserve muscle mass during caloric restriction. Another review from the Journal of Obesity shows that people who have diets higher in protein experience significantly greater fat loss compared to those with a lower protein intake. This is especially important when targeting belly fat, since visceral fat is the most metabolically active and potentially dangerous fat found within your body. And we're not just talking about boring old chicken breast. Yes, lean protein like chicken, turkey, egg whites, and white fish are phenomenal for fat loss because they deliver a lot of protein for a very small amount of calories. But fatty protein sources like salmon, egg yolks, beef, and chicken thighs also play a crucial role. Sure, these options come with some extra calories, but they also contain essential nutrients and fats that support hormone function. And that brings us to another point that most people ignore: testosterone. This hormone isn't just for bodybuilders. It plays a direct role in regulating where your body stores fat, how easily you build muscle, and how energetic you feel. And testosterone production relies on dietary fat. So eating nothing but dry chicken breast and steamed veggies might actually make fat loss harder if it crashes your hormones. Which brings us to carbs. And before you panic, no, carbs are not the enemy. In fact, if you pick the right ones, they become powerful allies. The key is choosing carbs that come from the ground and are minimally processed. These include things like sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, oats, and legumes. Why these? Because they contain fiber and resistant starch, both of which feed your gut bacteria, regulate your blood sugar, and keep you satisfied. These carbs digest slowly, which prevents the roller coaster of hunger that comes from sugar and refined grains. When your blood sugar is stable, you're less likely to experience those intense cravings that sabotage most diets. The studies definitely back this up as well. For example, a study published in the Journal of Nutrition showed that diets high in whole grains like brown rice and oats were associated with lower levels of abdominal fat. Other reliable studies indicate that higher fiber intake from unprocessed carbohydrate sources makes you feel full and reduces overall energy consumption throughout the rest of the day. Resistant starch found in foods like legumes and slightly cooled potatoes has been shown in the Nutrients Journal to improve insulin sensitivity and fat oxidation. What's really impressive is how these complex carbs interact with exercise. When you're performing resistance training by lifting weights or even exercising with just your body weight, you deplete glycogen, which is the stored form of carbohydrates in your muscles. Replenishing that glycogen post-workout with a complex carb doesn't just help recovery, it also signals to your body that it's safe to continue burning fat. On the flip side, if you're constantly low on carbs and training hard, your body can start to see that as a threat and slow your metabolism by reducing NEAT. This is the amount of physical activity you engage in throughout the day when factoring out exercise. This will naturally decrease without your control if you cut calories and especially carbs too low. That's why going super low carb can work in the short term but often leads to plateaus or burnout. Now we can move on to fats. Fats have been demonized for decades, but the right fats are crucial for hormone balance and long-term fat loss. And like I mentioned earlier, fats like those found in salmon and egg yolks help boost testosterone. But you also will most likely need to include sources like olive oil, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, and avocado oil to meet your daily needs and to simply make your meals taste better so that you can continue eating healthy. These fats don't just support hormones, they also help with nutrient absorption. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat soluble, which means if you're not eating enough fat, your body won't absorb them efficiently. Without these vitamins, everything from immune function to energy production and fat metabolism all take a hit. In other words, low-fat diets can actually make it much harder to lose fat. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has published multiple studies indicating that monounsaturated fats, like those found in olive oil and avocados, are linked to improved body composition and reductions in abdominal fat. Meanwhile, we have other studies and evidence supporting the idea that omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish like salmon contribute to decreased visceral fat and better metabolic health. And according to the Journal of Steroid Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, hormone production, especially of androgens like testosterone, depends heavily on fat intake, like I mentioned earlier. Now, if you only ate the last 4 food groups, you would be perfect. However, the caveat is none of this matters if you can't stick to your plan. And this is where most people fail. They eat perfectly for a week, maybe 2, and then one cheat meal turns into a cheat week. They feel guilty, frustrated, and they end up quitting. Why? Because their plan was never sustainable. It was based on willpower, not systems. That's why the 5th category of food on this list might be the most important: snacks and treats you actually enjoy. Listen, it doesn't matter how perfect your diet is on paper. If it doesn't include room for flexibility, it's going to collapse under the weight of real life. You need options that satisfy cravings without blowing up your progress. That's where smart, convenient snacks come into play. I'm talking about things like Quest chips, roasted seaweed, homemade protein popsicle sticks, zero sugar beef jerky, popcorn, deli meat, kale chips, PB2, and even diet soda or tea. Are they perfect? No. Are they as clean as a bowl of organic broccoli? Also no. But they do serve a purpose. They keep you from binging. They provide a psychological break, and most importantly, they make the plan enjoyable enough that you actually follow it. Because let's be honest, nobody is consistent with a diet they hate, and consistency, not perfection, is the real secret to fat loss. Studies published in obesity reviews and behavioral sciences have shown that dietary adherence is the single strongest predictor of long-term weight loss success, regardless of which diet someone follows. Having built-in flexibility and room for psychological relief from strict dieting improves compliance, mental well-being, and ultimately, fat loss results. Something you don't hear enough in the fitness industry, where different diet crowds like carnivore dieters fight with vegans about which plan is best. In reality, this argument is a waste of time. The actual plan you follow matters far less than how well you follow it. Paleo, keto, intermittent fasting, Mediterranean, vegan, they can all work. But what do all successful fat loss diets have in common? They revolve around the same food principles we've talked about today. High volume, low calorie vegetables, protein to preserve muscle and fuel recovery, fiber-rich carbs to regulate blood sugar and keep you full, healthy fats to support hormones, and enjoyable snacks to keep you on track. The methods can vary, the meals can change, but the core foods, for the most part, unless you're doing keto or carnivore, they stay the same. That's why jumping from one diet to another is usually a waste of time. You're not failing because the diet was broken, you're failing because you never fully committed to it. You never gave it enough time. You followed it Monday through Thursday and then went off the rails every weekend, and then blamed the plan instead of the lack of consistency. What you need to do is stop looking for magic and start looking for habits you can sustain. If that means meal prepping 20 meals at once on Sunday in advance for your whole week, great. If that means fasting and eating only one meal a day because you hate meal prepping, great. If that means buying healthier snack options to curb your cravings, do that. If it means rotating 3 go-to dinners that you actually enjoy, great. The simpler and more enjoyable your plan is, the more likely you are to stick to it. And that's when the fat just starts melting off. So the next time you're tempted to buy a new 7-day detox, 14-day fat flush, or some celebrity-endorsed waist trimmer, remember this: there are no shortcuts. Just like you can't get stronger without lifting weights, you can't get lean without consistency. But the good news is that you don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay consistent enough for the results to compound. If you can base your meals around the 5 food groups that we covered, vegetables, protein, complex carbs, healthy fats, and enjoyable snacks, you're gonna win. Maybe not overnight, but over time. So stop searching for the secret diet, start focusing on what actually works. Build your plan around these foods, make it enjoyable, and stick with it. That's the real path to losing belly fat fast and keeping it off for good. So that about wraps it up. I really hope this video has helped you understand how to set up your diet to actually lose belly fat.